All right, cool. Thank you.
Well, everyone, welcome back to a very exciting episode of your Storybox podcast. Today, my friends, I am delighted to welcome someone who I have surprisingly wanted to speak to since 2017. I'm delighted that we were able to make this happen. His name is Devon Franklin. Now, for those of you that don't know who he is, he's an award-winning producer, New York Times best-selling author, and renowned motivational speaker. He's also married to the popular Megan Good as well, who you've probably seen in movies. Two, he serves as president and CEO of Franklin Entertainment, a dynamic multimedia entertainment company with a first film deal at Paramount Pictures, imagine that, and a second look film deal at Netflix too, two major companies, and also an overall deal at CBS Studios. His films such as Breakthrough, The Star, and Miracles from Heaven have grossed, get this, over $175 million at the box office. I believe that is combined, which is honestly insane.
Yes.
You are a multiple times New York Times bestselling author of many different books, which is pretty incredible. I've read a few of them, I have to say, especially the one about love and marriage and sex. That one was a pretty good one. But you have you have a new book coming out, my friend, called Live Free, in which you teach us all the secret to living a happier life, get rid of as many expectations as possible for ourselves, our future, our relationships, our career, and our family. Devon Franklin, welcome so much to the Storybox podcast today.
Thank you so much, man. Listen, I'm glad to be here, Jay. It's an honor and a pleasure. Thanks for having me.
No, man, thank you so much for making the time. You're in New Mexico, I believe. You're producing a movie, which is pretty exciting. You have your new book coming out. You're doing press. You're doing all kinds of crazy stuff. How in the world do you find the time, man?
I don't know. I don't have a good answer. I just kind of, it's like a smoothie, a scheduled smoothie. You just put it all in there and mix it up and do the best you can. So, I'm very passionate about everything that I do, and I just try to prioritize accordingly.
How do you feel during this period of time in your life?
I'm feeling good. I feel really optimistic. I feel very blessed. I feel strong. I feel good.
I've been quite encouraged by you do quite a few Instagram videos where you're doing prayer, and
Yeah.
I'm a Christian. I do have to say that. So I've been blessed by your prayer videos, and specifically what you're praying for in those
Yeah.
videos. You're praying for people,
Yeah.
and I think we need that as a society today. But that's not one of the reasons why I wanted to speak to you today. The first
Okay.
question that I officially want to ask you to sort of begin this conversation is, Devon, you've written a book on success, but I've always been curious, having looked at success now in your life, what does it look like for you?
Success, I've always defined success as peace. So what it looks like for me is the things that bring me the most peace is when I feel like I'm the most purposeful, and that purpose is directly connected to operating in my gifts. So the more that I can operate in my gifts of communicating and, producing and encouraging and inspiring, the more I feel purposeful, the more I feel at peace, and the more I feel successful. So that's really what success is to me.
Mm. Have you ever struggled in your life to create this life where you do have inner peace? And more specifically, what does inner peace really look like?
Yeah, I mean, that's why I wrote, my book, my new book, Live Free, because there have been times I struggle with that inner peace, and that struggle to inner peace is all about like wrestling with what I'm expecting and what reality is delivered, and where God is in the process, and being frustrated at times. And so because I have always wanted that inner peace, and sometimes that inner peace has been elusive, it's why I started to analyze my own expectations and started to realize, oh wow, I've got to learn how to set my expectations, because when I do that, it actually will allow me to be more successful internally. It'll help me have more peace instead of just, having all of these unmanaged expectations. So yes, for sure, I have struggled with finding that internal peace, and it's something that I work at consistently.
So why do you think that someone like myself or someone that uh, is actually struggling with their own inner peace, why do you think that is the case?
It's a lot of reasons, but I think one of the reasons why is because we have things we want. There are things we want that we don't have.
Mm,
There's a certain place we want to be in life that we're not. We have all these visions of what life was supposed to be, and then we open our eyes, and the reality doesn't line up with the vision. It's usually the reason why there's no inner peace is there's a difficulty in bridging the gulf between what we hoped and where we are,
mm,
what we expected and reality. And that is where that struggle for inner peace to me lives, because it's hard to find it when you don't see what it is you want to see, and you don't have what it is you want to have, and you don't feel like you are who you really want to be.
mm. So how does that also align with a person's purpose and your values as an individual, and also your do you need to have a sense of faith in your life to live this free and peaceful life?
Well, definitely. I mean, I think faith is a critical element, and that element is to have the belief
Mm,
independent of the reality. And so, in the book, when I talk about living free, my definition of living free is to not be under the mental, emotional, or physical control of anyone or anything. That's when we live free. So, when I live free, it means I choose how I feel.
mm,
And so, to your point about purpose and faith, okay, great. I can be in purpose, living in purpose, and still have things that I want to see happen, and they're not in my reality. But because I have faith over those things, it gives me a peace to keep moving in purpose with the belief and the trust that the very things that, I'm praying for, that someone may be praying for, will manifest in their time.
mm. So how did you become a person of faith?
Man, I was raised in the church, and my father died when I was 9 years old.
Wow.
He died of a heart attack when he was 36, and I'm the middle child of three boys. And so that experience for me was very traumatic, and it really shaped so much of my upbringing and kind of who I am. And I remember very young, just hearing the voice of the Lord and hearing the call. And man, I think I probably got baptized, 9 or 10 years old, and I was very like, hey, this is what I want to do. I wanted to, give my life to Christ, and have been, recommitting every day ever since. So I really came I mean, I was in the faith and in church, but really came to Christ, because at a very early age, I knew that I wanted to, it just made
Mm,
sense. And I wanted to dedicate my life to being a follower of Christ, and really being a demonstration of what's possible,
mm.
for Christians, especially, I've been in Hollywood for 25 years, and a lot of people didn't think that it was possible for Christians to find success. And thankfully, I've been an example to so many that that's not true.
Mm. You've been an example to me. Now, I don't know if you can see in my back wall, but I got all these film posters and books and
Oh, I
all
can
that
see
sort of
Back to the
stuff.
Future. That's about all I can recognize here.
Back to the Future. I've got Unbroken there. I've got
Oh
Jaws.
yeah,
I've got The Princess
yeah. Jurassic
Bride,
Park.
Jurassic Park. I've got Schindler's List up there too.
I
So
see that.
I've got
Uh,
all these movies, right?
yeah,
And
Sarah Jake's book and Russell Brand, it looks like, or Matthew McConaughey. What?
that's
What
Matthew
that?
McConaughey. It's Woman Evolve with Sarah Jakes Roberts, who's a guest on the show as well.
Nice.
And Man Enough from Justin Baldoni. Uh,
Oh man, Justin. Yeah, he's good. Good dude.
he's a really good dude, man. Unreal personality, very
Yeah.
present, very
Yeah.
genuine. But the reason why, like, I was gonna say, for you, like I wanted to go into Hollywood. I wanted to be a Christian filmmaker. I wanted to make Christian movies, and it was kind of inspirational to see someone like yourself, Devon, that it's in the field and you do make a huge difference.
Mm.
So that for me was inspirational. Looking at that, it's like this is possible. So you
Yeah.
can do it. But one of the things that I did want to go back on and sort of ask you is your father died at age 9, and you mentioned that sort of shaped your world. How did
Yeah.
it shape your world? What did you learn? And did you ever question God at all why he took your father away so early?
At that age, no, I didn't. It was just a fact.
Mm,
Like, okay, this is what's happened, and how am I going to deal with it? I really at that time didn't have any questioning. I mean, as I've gotten older, I've kind of asked it more from a curiosity standpoint, not an anger or like, how could you never, not that at all.
mm,
And it shaped me, in ways that I talk about in the book. I talk about, in the book about this the creation of this persona that I had to wrestle with being perfect, called Mr. Perfect, and
mm,
coming out of my death of my father and trying to find my place. I started to find my place through achievement. So the more I would excel at school, the more I would excel at church, I would get that, pat on the back and, oh, good job. And so I started to live for the performance. I started to, achieve, like, oh wow, I want to be the best. And there's nothing wrong with that. But people started in middle school, people started calling me Mr. Perfect. And at first I'm like, oh, okay, great. That's great. I'm Mr. Perfect and I do everything right and great. And then as I got older, I realized, man, that's a prison because nobody's perfect. And so I felt like I was trying to live up to this image and creating an image and a persona. And so I got to the point where, I had to first of all find the value in myself instead of looking for it in the approval of others. That's first and foremost. The second thing is I had to say, you know what? I'm not perfect, and Jesus was the only one that was perfect, and let me, stop trying to act like something I'm not and be okay with being who I am and live life. And
mm,
as I started to do that, it really has helped me, come into my own, and be able to process the tragedy of losing my father in a different way, in a way I think that's healthier, and understanding, that the way I was going about filling that void through the praise of everybody was, it was well intended, but it was harmful.
mm.
So I really had to put that to rest. I really had to, as I talk about in the book, rest in peace, Mr. Perfect. I had to say, man, I can't do that no more. And so in the process of doing it, I live freer. I'm not too worried about what people think or feel or whatnot. And it took some time for me to get there, because dealing with the tragedy and the emotion around, just death. I mean, just you know being that young and experiencing death that close. I just didn't know how to process it. It took me a very long time to put it into context, and understand what it meant.
Mm. I lost my grandfather, I think I was 11 or 12.
Wow.
And like it's not anything like losing a father, but losing my grandfather and I were like this, were like he was my biggest mentor, biggest one of my biggest supporters, you name it. And I didn't understand why God took him away from me. I was like, because he ended up becoming a Christian, excuse me, towards the end of his life.
Wow.
But I didn't understand, why would God take away someone so precious to me? And then I sort of trapped myself in this vicious cycle of it was mental abuse of
Mhm.
questions like, why this, why that? And it happened for months. And, it wasn't until later on did I finally realize, hey, this was for a purpose. To this was for my benefit, not for my detriment. And I needed to realize that, and I needed to set myself free, my own mental state free. And a lot of people, they get trapped when a traumatic experience like death
Sure.
comes in their way. Um,
Definitely.
which I appreciate you talking about because I love
Yeah,
that
of
chapter.
course.
It's a powerful chapter. And especially how you're talking about, Mr. Perfect.
All right.
Man,
Exactly, man. I'm trying to kill that. I really am not trying to put that out there. I promise you, I'm not.
mate, I can relate to that on so many levels. Like the idea of perfectionism, like we all want it to be a certain way. Like if
Yeah.
it's not, then we get angry. we have all these sort of emotions that build
Oh,
up inside of us when it's not the exact perfect way we want it to be, so to
that's right.
speak. Um, so how do we, for someone that is going through that in their life, like it's easy for us to say, let's get rid of it. But what are some practical strategies that we can put in place to remove the Mr. Perfect or, the perfectionistic nature?
Well, that's why I wrote, Live Free. That's why I wrote this book, because it's
Mm,
all about learning the power of setting expectations. And so, in order to kind of deal with perfectionism, you got to learn how to set expectations. And in the book, I talk about in order to set expectations, you have to ask two questions about any expectation that you have. One, is it realistic or unrealistic? How do you know?
mm,
Is it in your control? If it's not in your control, then it's not realistic to expect. Two, is it spoken or unspoken? Does the expectation need to be communicated? And a lot of times we have expectations of other people and we never asked them, we never communicated it, we never gave them a chance to say yes or no, but we act as if we talked to them and had a conversation and then we treat them badly if they don't do it.
mhm.
Those are called unset expectations. And so that's the process of setting expectations. So if you're dealing with perfectionism, you got to say, okay, well, why? Because, oh, I have an unset expectation. I'm expecting things out of myself that are unrealistic.
Mm,
I'm expecting things out of myself when, trying to control, things are out of my control instead of having an understanding and peace about what you can control. And then also when things are uncommunicated, like, so when we talk about perfectionism and let's say you apply that to a professional situation and you want a promotion and you're doing all the work, to be completely perfect, right? Then it's like, oh, wait a minute. Oh, I'm here doing this on this job, but I never asked my boss. If I do this, will this lead to a promotion? Is there room for me to be promoted? Right. So we start to make all of these assumptions in our head, and as a result, we end up sometimes devastated when things don't come to pass. That's why I wrote this book, so that
mhm.
readers have the tips and tools on how to set expectations as a way to mitigate things like perfectionism and anything that keeps you back from being who you are.
What was one thing for you, or one truth specifically that you discovered about yourself that sort of surprised you while writing this book?
One of the truths that surprised me was I had a lot to say. You know what I mean? Shoot. I was like, wow, I have a lot of opinions on expectations. I was surprised by that. And then I
Mm,
was also surprised that there were so many things in my life that were disrupted because I had unset expectations.
mm,
It was just like, wow. My 30th birthday, I spent it upset because, I wasn't, it sounds so trivial to say it, but in the moment it was like everything. But in my 30th birthday, I was upset because I wasn't vice president of production. At the time, I was working for Sony Pictures Entertainment,
mm,
and I wasn't vice president of production. And I was like, oh my God, I'm a failure. Right. And then
mhm.
I look back, I'm like, it just was ridiculous putting that ridiculous expectation on myself. And then when I became vice president, nothing changed. It was the same life. And it's like we put these arbitrary benchmarks on our life and then we judge ourselves when we don't hit them. And as if the world makes a judgment about who we are. They don't. They don't. Nobody even half the time knows how old you are or aren't.
Mm.
So we clock those things that really don't matter, and then we make these arbitrary, incorrect judgments about ourselves. So I learned that expectations really have robbed me of a lot of moments, and I really want to going forward. I need to get those moments back by being more present. Releasing any expectation that I don't need and setting those that remain.
What's the biggest expectation for you that you want this book to do or be?
Yeah, my biggest hope for the book is that it touches as many lives as possible. I've already begun to see some of the impact of the message, right? Because see, it's really more than a book for me; it's a message,
Mm,
and I've begun to see the impact of the message. And I think everyone in some way struggles with expectations. So my hope for this book is that the message of the book reaches as many people as possible.
Mm,
I really want to reach as many people as possible because I don't believe that most people are living free. I believe that most people are living based upon somebody else's expectation of their life. So most people are living in a way where they're performing for everyone else's approval, but at the expense of what they really want to do, where they really want to live, who they really want to be with, what school they really want to attend. So as a result, they're not actually living their life. It's the equivalent of like, hey, you come into the earth, this is the vehicle that's available to you. It's completely suited for you. It's custom made, right? And then you say, or I say, oh, no, I'm going to go over and cram myself into this car, which is made for somebody else's life, and we're trying to fit into that.
mm,
It's like, why are we uncomfortable? Because we're not actually in the vehicle for our life that we're supposed to be. So my greatest hope is that people would get the message and that they would start to live free, that they would start to change their life. They would start to have some difficult conversations, and they would stop meeting everyone else's expectation if it's not an expectation of their choosing.
mm. The book is a fascinating read. Now, I haven't read the whole book, I have to admit, but I've read most of it, and
Thank
it's separated into, which I found interesting. It's separated into, I think, 4 different
you. Yeah,
parts, main
yeah,
parts, and then
exactly.
you've got mini little segments within that, with little titles in there, which I found quite interesting. Was that always the plan for you going into it?
No, no. I mean, I started with this big concept of expectations, like, and then as I started getting in it, I was like, okay, it's such a sprawling concept that I
Mm,
had to start, organizing my principles and organizing my thought process, which is why I put them in the 4 categories I think affect us most: personal, cultural, relational, and professional.
mm. Was it actually hard for you to structure your thoughts during that whole process?
Oh my goodness, very hard. Yeah, because it's like, it's not enough just to have a point. You have to support it, and you got to make sure that there's a flow and there's a thought process from the first chapter all the way through the last. So yeah, it was hard. Probably one of the hardest books I've ever had to structure.
Wow, man. So
Yeah.
if I was to get a physical copy of your book, like just a regular person would, and open it up to any particular part in the book, chapter, page, whatever, that is going to give me a challenge or a new perspective, or even the most out of the book, which page, chapter would you recommend that I turn to first?
Yeah, I think the best in terms of that would be page 175. I have a love affirmation on page 175, which
Mm,
is there's a scripture that says, "Love your neighbor as yourself," and everyone wants to focus on the neighbor part, but very few people focus on the self part. Why
mm,
don't we love our neighbor well? Because we don't actually love ourselves very well. And so I wrote a love affirmation to help any reader fall more in love with themselves and to value who they were created to be, and to become the love that they want to receive now. And that affirmation, I've already released it online and released it socially, and it's got a lot of traction, and people are really, really finding it. And so, that probably, I would say, would be the page and the moment in the book that comes to mind, that I believe anyone who reads it will
mm.
absolutely be impacted by it.
Mm. You have a part which is the relational part, which you actually talk about living free within relationships. What does it actually mean? I'm curious.
Yeah, it means that in my experience, people allow their relationship to control their emotions. And if the person that they're with is doing the things that they want, then they're happy. And if they're not, then they're not, right? And so often, in a relationship, most people are looking for the other person to make them happy. And when you live free, and I talk about this in the book, when you live free, you make yourself happy. You are responsible for your happiness. Period. End of story.
Mm,
And bring that happiness to your relationship, and you allow your partner to contribute happiness to you, but you don't allow your partner to be the keeper of your happiness and the creator of your happiness. That's what it means to live free. And there's
mm,
nothing wrong with love, but the challenge is that, in my experience and what I have observed in a relationship, people make love their God.
mm,
And I'm not talking about God as love. I'm not talking about that kind of love. I'm saying the relationship, the love, marriage, that becomes the God. So whatever the marriage or the partner wants, that's the God they serve. And that is great as long as the partner is doing and going the places you want to do and go. But when the partner wants to do something different, then it becomes much more challenging. So I
Mm.
wrote this book and wrote that particular section to give everyone a perspective on how to have healthier relationships, how to have a more successful love life, because that all starts internally.
Mm. So, speaking about love, I've always been curious. What do you love the most about your wife?
Man, I love her individuality. I just love the fact that she is who she is, and that's a blessing, man. It's not easy. I mean, I'm using this book as a way to really motivate people and help people to find their truth and their freedom, and to become who they are. And so, when I look at my wife, I really admire her ability to do that already.
What do you love the most about yourself?
Man, listen, I love that I'm, completely committed. I'm committed to this thing. It's like, man, anytime I want to quit, I just can't quit. I am committed to my calling. I'm committed to doing everything I can to make a positive impact in this earth, man. And that's, I love that. I love that because, some days that commitment is hard, but I love that I stay committed to the commitment, even in the face of great challenges.
Mm, I love that, man. So you also talk about, because commitment is very rare, right? Like you don't see many men, especially in today's society, commit to not only themselves but a project or their wife. That's why we've got so much divorce happening. I mean, there's a lot of there's issues and all that sort of stuff, but I think if we really committed to communicate better, committed to our faith more, and not just be so all over the place, like waves, all just moving with the tide. I think if we really stood firm, then we could see a great change happen.
Yeah.
And
Yep.
that's what I believe, at least,
Yep.
because I
I
feel that,
agree
man.
with that.
Like
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
I'm I'm part of the. If I say something, I'm gonna damn well go for it. I'm committed to it. You know, like
Exactly. Exactly, man. I feel you. I'm the same way. So hey, we're definitely rowing in the same direction on that one.
kindred spirits, man. Couple more questions for you, if you don't mind, my man. Like this one, you actually have this part in the book which I found quite interesting. Let's talk about sex, and you had a book out which actually talked about sex within marriage, waiting for for marriage before you actually have sex. Now, I'm curious about this whole notion. This could be a completely ridiculous question to ask, but I'm going to ask it anyway. Should we all be free to have sex outside of marriage? Because I'm sure society would agree with me on that one. Or is it better to wait and have sex within marriage freely? And how would we explain this whole concept to someone that doesn't believe this?
Explain which concept.
The living free with sex, the whole it should, yeah. If I explain it correctly.
Yeah. Yeah. Everybody has to go on their journey. And this to me is where, uh, communities of faith get it wrong.
Mm,
Meaning, I do believe that there is tremendous value in waiting to have sex until marriage. And I can share my story and, point to other stories and point to research and statistics about why I believe that, point to, scripture, so on and so forth. But everybody's got to go on their journey. So everyone has to be free to hear that and then sort that out for themselves.
mm,
So often there's this thing of like, oh, you can't do or you shouldn't do. Well, wait, everyone's got to go on their journey. I can share with you what works on my journey. I can share with you what I believe, we can find in the word, but then every individual is given the power of choice. Just speaking spiritually, just quickly, you go back to the Garden of Eden. God says, listen, there's the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. You have the whole garden. You can't eat that. There are some, that believe, and I do believe that well, why would God put the tree there?
mm,
Because can you love someone independent of a choice to?
Mm.
So from the very beginning, we were given choice, right? So why is it now when we're talking about living life, especially people in communities of faith want to try to, rob people of their choice? So my point of view is I believe there's value in waiting until marriage, yet I believe everyone has to find and make that choice for themselves. And so when you are living free, and we're talking about being single and having sex, and I talk about this in the book, one of the things about sex is that sex is an activity that outside of love and outside of commitment, even inside of love and commitment, but let's just talk about that for a minute, it can become a very addictive in a way where doing the activity then it controls you.
Mm.
So when I talk about living free, it means that you're not under the mental, physical, or emotional control of anyone or anything. What controls people? What imprisons people? Sex. So a lot of people then manipulate their whole life, or their situations to get it from people that they don't care about, just to have it in times when they feel like having it, like with no regard for themselves or the person from which they're getting it. And so you have to think about, okay, well, how much pain has been inflicted on people that takes those people a lifetime to impact because they did not know up front that all this was going to be with sex. So if somebody was not convicted to wait until marriage and they wanted to, apply the live free principles, what I would say is, one, be upfront with whoever you're dating and set their expectations. If all you want is sex, then tell them that and give them the opportunity to say yes or no to that. But don't become a manipulator.
Mm.
Don't become somebody who has a secret agenda, and then you end up selling someone a bill of goods that there's more here, when ultimately all it was about was the sex. And then once you're tired with sex, you break up with them, they're left with a broken heart, and you go on to the next. That's not living free. Give them the opportunity to say, yes, fine. If all you want is sex, cool, let's go. That's all I want to. Or I'm okay with that. Give that adult the ability to say yes. Don't turn yourself into a manipulator, and then be willing to deal with whatever repercussions come from that, emotionally, spiritually, physically. If you are making the choice to have it, then be accountable and responsible for all that comes with it. So this is how I would answer that question. This is how I would help somebody navigate these principles.
Mate, I swear you're teasing me to ask you more and more questions.
I wish we had more time,
Yeah, same
Dude,
here, man. Same here.
It's very tight. So we can do part two.
I've got two quick final questions.
Okay, quick, and I'll be quick.
So this one, okay, when in your life, when you least expected God to show up in a big way, has he shown up in a big way for you?
Recently there was a situation where I had a deal on a movie, and, the deal was made years ago, and it was not reflective of my current value, but, the deal was made years ago. What can I do? So, and then I got a call out of the blue that, my deal was going to be increased by 50%. Didn't ask for it, didn't pray for it, nothing. Just was operating in my purpose, and God said, I got you. So, that was a moment that happened not that long ago where I'm like, man, God, you're amazing. You showed up in a huge way.
Man, that is one heck of a story.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Trust me, man. That's God. That's God, man.
Dude, that is so cool. Okay, my final question for you, Devon. This is my all-time favorite question. I ask everyone at the end. So it's a hypothetical one, but I want you to imagine with me for a moment that you've been able to reach the age of 100. All your friends and your family have decided to put together a film for you of everything you've ever said and everything you've ever done. Don't ask me how in the world they got it all. We'll call it magic for the sake of argument. But they've been able to get it and show it to you on your 100th birthday. What do you want that film to say and to show about your life?
Wow. Oh, man. What I wanted to say, there's that scripture that says, well done, my good and faithful servant. So that's what comes to mind. Yeah. Can you come back at about an hour? Thank you. Sorry.
Sorry, man.
Mexico. So you can probably edit that out. So well done, my good and faithful servant. is what comes to mind. And my hope is that my intent to impact people in a positive way, that intent was realized. And my hope is that that movie would show me and others the unknown impact on so many people. It's one thing to know your impact and for people to express it via social media or when they see you, or you can see the fruits of my labor or your labor based upon metrics and how a movie may do, so on and so forth. But to see the unexpected or the unknown impact on individuals, that's something I would hope that a movie like that would feature.
Definitely a movie that I would watch for sure.
Thank
Devon,
you.
man,
That makes one of you.
what was that? Sorry.
No, I said that you said that's a movie that you would watch. I said that makes one of us or one of you.
That's true. Very true, man. But Devon, man, where can people find you, connect with you, buy your new book, man?
Man, yeah, listen, you can find me at Devon Franklin on Instagram and Twitter. You can find me at Devon Franklin Official on Facebook. You can also come to my website at devonfranklin.com. And, we have a great community there and a lot of free resources for anyone listening to be able to help you in every aspect of your journey.
So, Devon Franklin, thank you so much for your time today, man. Your story, your wisdom, your advice. I hope this book goes wild. New York Times best-selling author. It's going to happen again. Trust me. But thank you for coming on the Storybox podcast, man.
Thank you, Jay, man. I appreciate you, man. God bless you, man. And God bless you as you keep doing what you're doing.